All right,
All
we're
right,
ready to go.
recording now.
All right, tonight we have Dorothy Gasque, who is a candidate running for Congress in Washington State CD3. Welcome, Dorothy.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for interviewing me.
Beautiful. So I guess I gotta get back down to the questions here. So, do you believe in the need for campaign finance reform, not support super PACs or Citizens United?
That would be a big yes.
Would you mind elaborating on that, those situations?
Sure. So the influence of money in politics in the United States is probably the number one, no, not probably, it is the number one issue that we need to take on. Until we get money out of politics, we are going to continue to be stopped from pushing forward any progressive platform ideas because they directly go against the interest of the people who are currently donating to campaigns.
Would you yourself ever consider taking any big money from corporations?
Nope. I have made a commitment to grassroots fundraising.
Thank you very much. Do you believe in Medicare, Medicaid, or single payer for all?
Yes, I do. I think it's the most effective way for us to ensure universal health care, which I believe everyone should have a right to.
We have one in the works here for Washington State. Have you heard of it?
Whole Washington?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Are you interested in helping get the word out on that and back that up?
Yes, I have already been doing that.
Beautiful. Thank you. Do you believe in the LGBTQ marriage equality and equal rights?
Yes, I believe that the LGBTQ community should be added to the protected class. I am actually quite shocked that the Democrats didn't do it when they had control of the federal government during the first few years of Obama's presidency.
Thank you very much. Do you believe in tax-paid, public accredited college access for all who are accepted and free tuition at all public colleges?
Yes. And I also think that we need to expand on that and talk a lot about trade education for those who are not bound for college. I think that we really need to ensure that we have an educated populace. It's the cornerstone of democracy. You know, if we don't have people understanding how our democracy functions, then they don't, and they're not participating, and they're not keeping it strong and healthy. It's also really good for our economy. I mean, it boosts our economy. There's a huge return on investment. If we invest in education, we will do better as a nation.
Thank you. Do you support college loan repayment relief and college loan monthly payment no more than 10% of net income?
Yes, I definitely support that. I think that the government should not be profiting off of students and people who have, you know, desperately gone after an education in the hopes that it would improve their futures. And that's just not something we should be using to fund the government.
Thank you. Hey, how do you believe in closing the corporate tax loopholes?
Yes, I believe in closing corporate tax loopholes and personal wealth loopholes. You know, I think we should be simplifying our tax system and ensuring that there isn't a benefit to being wealthy, that you can only get by being able to afford the best tax attorneys.
Do you believe in the 15 minimum wage? Graduated in over 4 years at the maximum.
Yes. I mean, I don't know if $15 an hour in 14 years is going to be enough. I think that we definitely need to tie it to the cost of living, and ensure that whatever that endpoint is will be caught up to what is necessary for someone to be able to afford a home, afford a vehicle, and afford the basic necessities of life, including entertainment.
So more of an actual living minimum wage, having it somewhat structured maybe per area, not necessarily on an actual dollar amount, something a little bit more fluid in
Yes.
thinking.
Yes, it needs to be, so that we don't get to this point again, we need to have it tied to the cost of living. So as the cost of living goes up, so do wages, without us having to vote on it every time, because that's how we end up in this situation where our, minimum wage is so out of sync with the cost of living. When the minimum wage was originally instituted, it was designed to the point that someone was able to support their entire family on it. It was 25 cents an hour, and that would ensure that someone could have a home, they could send their kids to college, they had a vehicle, and this was one person supporting the entire family, instead of what it is now where, you've got two people working to support a family, and often they're doing multiple jobs apiece.
Thank you. Prioritizing and repairing infrastructure. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's an absolute necessity. It's a travesty that we are even having to argue about this. We have bridges that are on the verge of collapsing. We've had bridges collapse in the United States, and this is just not something that we should put aside and make political. I mean, we should all agree that our roadways and our bridges should be safe, that we should have the basic infrastructure necessary to ensure that, we have a good energy system. We need to update the grid. We need to update the telecommunications across the nation. There's no reason that we shouldn't be bringing broadband into rural areas and ensuring that we all have access to the same technological advancements. We're behind, like on high-speed internet, we're behind countries that you would just be shocked to know. Like, you would think we would be on par with countries like Korea and Scandinavian countries. I think we're behind, like someone mentioned to me yesterday, that we're behind like Latvia as far as high-speed internet access, and that's something that we can change by investing in infrastructure across the nation, and that will give people jobs that are living wages and really boost our economy.
Right. So in CD3, this area in and of itself, when it comes to our bridges, there has been a proposal put out there. What do you think about the proposed new bridge?
Are you talking about like the third bridge option, or?
I haven't researched each of them very well, so I'm hoping that you would give us a light on what options you are liking at the point, or which option you would most likely put your vote behind, or would you come up with another kind of idea altogether?
I think that any option that doesn't include the I-5 being repaired is an absurd option. I don't really see any viability in a third bridge on the west side of Vancouver, because the amount of homes that would have to be bulldoze through is, it's not going to be a viable option. Who's going to want that?
Okay. We have a question from Gigi. She wants to know how you feel about small businesses not being able to pay the $15 an hour when they're barely making it now.
Well, since the minimum wage increase would be incremental, it's not going to happen overnight. By giving people more money, they spend more money. And so those businesses will thrive when people have more money to spend at them. And if they still can't pay the wages, then they're probably not at the point that they need to hire someone new on.
So I believe in police / prison reform, kind of end the private prisons, drug treatment versus prison, possible body cams, demilitarize, retrain police, etc. What's your outlook and all that good stuff?
That is a long question.
It is. I can break it up for you if you'd like.
Well, I think I can just give an overall view of what
Beautiful.
I think about the criminal justice system in general.
Thank you.
I definitely believe that we need to demilitarize our police. When we create this sense of the police needing to defend themselves against American citizens, then they're more likely to harm American citizens. And that's not their place. Their place is not to be judge, jury, and executioner. They should be taught how to de-escalate, not to escalate, which is really where they kind of take it. I think beyond, I mean, is that the only part of the question, like demilitarization of the police? Was there more about the criminal justice system in there?
Well, that was a big one. So kind of the ending, I mean, the private prisons, kind of the instead of maybe not the private ones, maybe looking at, our own prison system. And then how it's, drug treatment is being used or not used, and the prison system is being used instead to help with drug addiction and stuff like that. So what are your thoughts on that?
All right. So as far as privatized prisons go, that is, I think, a complete departure from a free society. That should be part of what the government does. It's actually laid out as like the first part of the Constitution and the preamble of what the government function is in establishing justice. This isn't something that should be done by private companies. No one should be able to profit off of people being put in prison, because then what they do is then they lobby for stricter laws, and then we end up where we are right now with the largest prison population in the world. And that's not per capita. We have the largest prison population per world, in the world. And that is just crazy and insane. And that is something that we definitely need to talk about. And, as far as drugs go, we need to decriminalize drugs and treat, drug addiction as a health issue. And we should definitely legalize cannabis across the country. Nobody should be in jail for marijuana.
Beautiful. Tambourine has asked a question. So do you believe it's time to put the people before party politics, specifically in regards to working with progressive coalitions that include progressive Democrats, progressive independents, Greens, socialist alternatives? Also, would you be in favor of the Democratic Party implementing a similar endorsement process for other progressive candidates as the Greens have, in terms of endorsing candidates who share similar progressive goals but are members of other parties? Kind of just the overall put people before politics aside.
Yeah, I think so. I think country above party, people above party. I don't think party identity should be more important than anything else. And I do think that in order for us to win as progressives, and in order for us to succeed, we do have to build coalitions, and we do have to work together, and we do have to unify. Oh, I hate that word. Sorry to use it.
I know,
but
solidarity is the best.
Solidarity.
Solidarity.
But that we do need to build coalitions and work together and begin to understand that we all have shared values, and that it doesn't really matter where we find ourselves, politically, as long as we are pushing for the same sort of platform.
Ideology over party name. Tambourine, do you feel like your question was answered sufficiently? Oh, she'll get back to me when she's busy. Do you believe in finding a way to reduce the power of the military-industrial complex and constant state of conflict or in war? Be as specific as possible.
Wow. So I think that our military budget is absurd, and not just what is earmarked for the Department of Defense, but the defense budget is much bigger than what people think it is, because there's defense spending, across in other areas of the government, like the Department of Homeland Security, the National Security Agency. There's a lot more defense spending than in that just already absurd Department of Defense budget. We definitely need to curb it and to spend our money much smarter. And I think that we should be investing in nation building at home. I am a combat veteran, and so I have some particular feelings in this field. I think it's absolutely crazy what our government is doing in our name. I think that we need people in Congress who are willing to stand up and say enough is enough. 15 years is beyond long enough to be engaged in warfare. We need to start talking about how we build peace and how we move forward to end it, not how we strengthen our defense budget and how we engage in more war.
Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Tyler right now. He's going to come in and ask a few more questions and kind of take over. And Tyler, you ready?
Yeah. Dorothy, what's your stance on the Second Amendment and the right to keep and bear arms?
I am actually pretty pro Second Amendment. I mean, it's written into the Constitution. I don't think that we're ever going to get rid of that. I do believe that we need universal background checks, and I do believe we need to study gun violence as a public health issue and try and figure out how we can reduce it. It is absurd, but I don't think that banning guns is going to solve our violence issues.
Great. To switch gears entirely, one of the huge questions that we all have, and one of the main reasons we're here tonight, is this issue of the split vote. We're in a first past the post electoral system, and in your race there are three progressives, at least two of whom we know well. How do you deal with that issue, knowing that that if there were two Republicans running, the three of you might split so far that we might get two Republicans going into the general election in your race?
Well, I think that it's on the progressive movement as a whole to really kind of figure that out, which candidate is the best, which candidate is the strongest, and which candidate they can kind of agree to get behind. I just want to make sure that we have a strong candidate who can take on Jamie Herrera Butler and really defeat her, someone who can stand next to her and not be outshined, somebody who can, take her on platform issues and someone who can engage voters and mobilize them, because our baseline Democratic vote here in the 3rd Congressional District is 40%. In order for us to win, we are going to have to bring new people into the process to vote. And that's going to require a lot of work and effort and getting out there and connecting with voters and trying to get more people to register and more people to participate and keep people engaged and energized for the next year and a half. And so that is what we should be looking for, not just in this race, but across the country. You know, we really need to organize and to get behind good, strong, solid candidates. If we don't, we're going to lose more and more races, and we're going to lose the ground that we've already made up.
Last question from me: what is your position on Dem enter versus Dem exit, and the movement, the turmoil within the progressive left?
I want to see us not have so much infighting and for us to respect each other in our places. I mean, I understand why some people don't want to be a part of the Democratic Party. It can be pretty difficult at times, and it can feel hopeless when we keep getting this pushback, and we're dealing with such a giant beast in the corrupted levels of the party. But we need people on the inside, and we have to have people on the inside because they have incredible power. And we are not going to take that power away only on the outside. We need both the inside and outside pressures.
Great. We've got some more questions coming in. I'm going to hand off to Gigi for the next question. Gigi, you're still muted.
Everyone. Okay, there I am. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi.
Hi. I'm asking this question. I'm prerequisiting because I'm asking this question because there was just an election, I think, in the Midwest where they had a number of candidates running on the progressive ticket, and all of them lost. So my question then is there at any point where you might say, I'm going to step back for the best interest of the party and us push someone else forward? Not saying this is something I want to ask all candidates when we have multiple candidates running for a specific seat.
Yeah, I think if there was a candidate that was stronger, that had the drive and the passion and the ability to really connect with people, but maybe had, more political experience than I did, or some other thing that kind of sets them apart from me, then yes, I would step back, because there's no reason for me to compete in that realm. I do put the movement first always.
How are you feeling about those you're running against right now?
Ooh, I really don't like answering this question. I don't want to. I just
no,
want to.
not personally,
yeah.
But as far as being a strong candidate.
I mean, as far as being a strong candidate, I come in already with a base, and I'm able to expand on that base more rapidly, having already established one. And I think that that's what sets me apart from the other candidates. They're still trying to work on building that base. I already have a team in place. We're already, setting up really good organization, and we are already ahead of the others. And so, I mean, that's just kind of where we differentiate. And I also have that proven ability to engage people and to bring them into the process.
Does someone have a TV on in the background?
Gigi, can you mute your microphone when you're not actually speaking, please? Thanks.
It's good.
Oh. Babe, would you turn that down, the TV down?
Yeah. Are you good with your question? Is that answered good enough for you, Gigi?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Off of that real quick, Dorothy, we do have Tambourine that wants to also ask you a question, but kind of going off of that, talk about being able to mobilize people. Do you have some examples where you've been able to mobilize the base that you have now, or and others?
Well, yeah, I was pretty much the key leader of the Bernie campaign, sort of when the campaign actually came here. And so I've been working for the last 2 years of kind of putting together the progressive movement, and we were able to double caucus turnout in our county from the 2008 number. So we went from 8,500 to 17,000 this year. And that is largely because of helping us build an organization that went out and taught people about the process. I mean, we had to, teach a lot of people how to caucus, what a caucus was, how to caucus, where to caucus, and why they needed to caucus. And through that process, we were able to engage a lot of people and bring them out. And then, through the entire caucus process, bringing and ensuring the delegates showed up when they were supposed to show up so we could keep our numbers throughout.
Excellent. Tambourine, are you ready?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, Dorothy.
Hi.
Hi. So my question is, if you were a member of Congress today, would you stand with Tulsi Gabbard in regard to her courageous stand against regime change wars? Specifically, as it pertains to Syria, I'm not sure if you're aware, she just returned from Syria in January. Have you been keeping up with her findings and her position? And if so, would you stand with her, even though the majority of your party would be against that type of narrative?
Yes, I would stand with her. I do stand with her. I absolutely stand against regime change wars. I think that unless we have clear evidence that there is a genocide happening or what is happening, we can't just jump the gun and rush in. And if we are going to pursue that route, then we need to build the evidence, and we need to work with other nations in order to bring them to court and actually hold them accountable. I don't think we can be just dropping bombs based on sketchy information.
So what if there was evidence that it was not what the U.S. narrative is? And well, let me just ask you this. What is your opinion of WikiLeaks and their information?
I think I'm a little bothered by the way that WikiLeaks kind of didn't protect the names of some people when they've released information. They do put people in danger when they don't protect people's names. and identities. But other than that, I think that it's very important that we have access to information when human rights and when our rights are being violated. I do
So,
think.
sorry.
Oh, you go. I do believe in the power of whistleblowers. I think that it's important that we protect them.
Okay, cool. So given that WikiLeaks has a 10-year, 100% record of never being proven wrong, they're just, if I can just read this just dropped, actually. So in the name of current events, I'll just read it. Says, WikiLeaks documents prove Syria chemical attack orchestrated by U.S. Attack was used to oust Assad from power. WikiLeaks previously released documents to suggest the recent chemical attack on Syrian civilians was engineered by U.S. intelligence to oust Assad from power. Now, if you were in Congress in this moment, how would you feel about reading that? And what would you do with that information?
Well, I probably would feel the same way that I feel right now, which is a bit of a sense of shock. And what I would do with it is I would research it and verify the information and move forward with looking at something like that as being a form of treason. I mean, that's absolutely crazy if it's true.
Right. So you would stand with those, even if it's just one other person, and if it was just yourself.
Even just like Bernie did, I would stand there and speak to an empty room if I had to.
Awesome. Good. Thanks.
Anybody else real quick before we move on? Have a personal question? Okay, so women's rights, Planned Parenthood, all that jazz. Do I need to ask any further questions, or would you like to just give your 2 cents?
Well, yeah, I absolutely think, when we're talking about Planned Parenthood and access to health care and access to birth control, I mean, if we want to reduce the number of abortions, the surefire way to do that is to give people comprehensive sex education and to provide them with the ability to prevent pregnancies.
So, climate change, right? Working towards renewable energy and sources. Our area, it's getting more and more looked at to be taken over by oil terminals. We're trying to get rid of the successorial lease. We got the largest methanol plant in the world trying to be built up north. What's your stance, and what's some of the solutions of being able to start going more clean energy-wise here?
Well, I think that we need a comprehensive energy plan that looks at the long-term goals and how we achieve them. I also think that I'm going to agree with Bill McKibben from 350.org that we need like a World War II level of like getting everybody across the nation to just start focusing on solving these issues, getting us away from fossil fuels and trying to engineer ways to mitigate the effects of global warming. We are going to be seeing more and more crisis level events because of the climate, and it just continues to accelerate. We don't have time. We don't have time to wait. We don't have time to continue to argue with people who don't understand science or who want to politicize something that shouldn't be politicized. This is not something that should be partisan. The world is dying. The ecosystem is struggling across the world, and we are seeing it happening in the oceans. And when it happens in the oceans, the rest of the life on the planet will die. And we're talking about extinction level events here. We do not have time to play around. We must do everything we can to fix this problem.
So not only with climate change, but, you know, our water systems are being poisoned, in our air. So infrastructure, again, is a pretty big part. What other solutions do you think, or ideas do you think we could look at in trying to protect our most vulnerable when it comes to that? We have to pay for our water out of plastic bottles nowadays. So
Well,
we need to,
that's absurd.
should we look at investing in Nestle more, or what should we do?
No, we should definitely be investing in infrastructure and repairing, you know, our water lines. And it's absurd that, what are we in, like year 3 now that Flint has been without drinking water? And that's just, that should make us all pause and say, what's wrong with this picture? And it's not just Flint. I mean, there's cities across the country that are having these same issues because of our outdated infrastructure, because of the use of lead solder in plumbing and the acidification of water. Those two things together are going to cause a lot of problems.
Thank you. So we hear about separation of church and state. I think today we need to go beyond that as well, and thinking of separating corporations and state. What do you feel about big money, big dollars, big religion having such a big stronghold on our government?
And I think that corporations should not have that kind of power. I think this is something that was known from even the beginnings of America. Our founding fathers, you know, talked about issues with money in politics, and it became a big issue during the first Gilded Age. You know, and Teddy Roosevelt really railed against the power of corporations. And we did something about it, and we regulated it, and then further down the line they deregulated, and we are back where we started. And we need to definitely take on the issue of big money influencing our nation, our government. The only people who should be influencing our government are the people.
Brilliant. Thank you. Do you believe in a path to citizenship?
Yes, I think that we definitely need to have a path to citizenship. I think that we need to work towards opening that up and ensuring that people who are here, who have been working here, who have been living here, who have established themselves here, have a way to become legal.
Oh, the feast is the source, yeah.
So it's kind of, you know, a little bit back with the TPP, since it's kind of been halted, but it's getting rearranged, or your kind of idea of our trade positions, very, very close. If you wouldn't mind.
Trade deals should balance what's good for the people, what is good for the environment, and what is good for business. All of those things should be taken into consideration, and we shouldn't be making it so that corporations can be branded as American, but actually be produced in other countries where they are taking advantage of the lax laws and worker protection and environmental protection.
So we kind of hit on Bernie already, but one of the questions is, did you support him in the primary 2016?
Yes. I did more than support him. I fought tooth and nail for Bernie, and I fought all the way up to the convention.
Yes, you were a national delegate inside in Philadelphia. If anybody kind of felt the strain on the establishment versus the Bernie people, the Berniecrats, it's you and those inside the DNC there. Do you want to kind of elaborate on how you felt and how maybe that might be, I mean, is that a reason what pushed you so hard to run now? And what links, you know, you've went through to get to where you are today? Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think it definitely influences my reason for running now. It was a surreal experience being inside that convention to really see just firsthand how entrenched our system is, where the media and the party and the federal government were all sort of functioning as a team in order to paint a picture that was false. Inside that convention, there was a definite break between the Hillary wing of the party and the Bernie wing of the party. But if you were viewing from the outside and your access to that information came through your standard media sources like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, PBS, you know, and then your standard papers, you would think that everything was okay and we were all rallying behind Hillary and there were no issues and it was all some pretty happy party. But that's not the truth. That was completely void from the truth. And so to see that the propaganda spread not just from the party but outward into the nation as a whole, and to have the media not be a separate entity from that, and to have the federal government. I mean, we were in the Washington state delegation at one point. They had ICE agents come in and stand over us in order to intimidate us. And that just, to me, was like the point in which I just said, this is absolute absurdity to see this level of collusion. It was really kind of a eye-opening experience. It truly made me see how hard we need to fight in order to change this system.
So are you a blue, vote blue, no matter who candidate? Do you believe there is a place for a third party to help kind of break up the two-party duopoly? And would you encourage those that don't feel like that they can get represented in the Democratic Party to find their home in one of the third parties outside?
Yes, I think that we are not one-dimensional beings. And when we only have two parties, we're sort of stuck in this single line of being either for far-right economic policy or center-right economic policy. And those are the two choices that we have right now. And so I do believe that we should have a little bit more competition in the system, so that we can have a broader range of ideas, and that we are encouraged then to build coalitions and to work as coalitions. And I definitely think that we have to put country above party. That if we continue down this road where Democrats are loyal to Democrats and Republicans are loyal to Republicans, and it doesn't really matter what those elected officials are doing who carry those titles, and we're not holding them accountable, then we're just going to continue down this path until it is too late.
Yes, definitely.
Or
Um, did have something else in my. Does anybody have a question before we start?
To know what you think about RCV, IRV, the various
Yes.
any alternatives to first past the post. What is your stance on that sort of thing?
I think I'm really interested in seeing us institute a ranked choice voting and trying that out as a way to kind of add more variety to the system. But then we're also in the Washington state, we're going to need to get rid of our top two, because as long as we have that top two, it's not going to matter. It's top two is always going to favor Republicans and Democrats. But if we can expand the top two, I think keep an open primary, but expand the top two to top three, top four, and do some ranked choice voting, we can open the system up to more parties.
Is there anything else in Washington because that can be worked on? We know about getting rid of expanding the top two and using a ranked choice system voting. Are there any other strategies we should be looking at as well to open that up, or are those the main two that we need to work on?
I think those are the main two that are doable and that we should work on. Those are and then after that we can start kind of exploring other ideas, but the first focus should probably be in sort of a dual process of ranked choice voting and getting rid of the top two.
So with doers and sayers out there, what can you say that you have done and gotten behind in your community or any organizations that work on actually what we're talking about tonight, changing how things are ran? Can you give us some things you've been working on in your community and how that can help change what we view today as a broken system?
Yes, I am. So I've been heavily involved in the Dem Inter, sort of reforming the party locally at the Clark County level. And I've been working on, I think, the most important thing we can be doing, and that's with Represent Us and pushing forward some anti-corruption legislation and really working on getting big money out of politics. And we absolutely will get nothing else until we get big money out of politics. And that's what I tell everybody. If you're only going to focus on one issue, this is the one issue you should focus on.
And what about election fraud? There's people say that Washington has a beautiful system and it's not flawed. What's your thoughts on that?
I do think we have a pretty robust system. We have the paper ballots, so there's always a record, and we have the mail-in ballots, so we have this comfort of being able to vote from home, and so we never have to deal with any pressures at the polls. We never have to worry about being denied access at the poll. But I think that there's always probably room for improvement. I believe the system right now only allows observers from the two main parties. I don't know if there are.
So there has been an addition. I'm a member of the League of Women Voters, and they are now allowed to, now in our area, and it'll be opened up to others, now are able to train and bring in election observers as far as an independent party, but it's the only one that I'm aware of so far. But I'm grabbing on to that opportunity, and I think everybody else should as well, or maybe look at other groups that might be able to do that. But that was just recently announced. So before that, it doesn't sound like there was any other oversight other than the two main parties.
So that's definitely an improvement, I think.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as the way the rest of the country functions, you know, I do think we have a pretty robust system in Washington State.
Tyler? Or anything else?
Tamberine's got one.
Okay. Go ahead, Tam.
Sorry, guys, I had to unmute myself. So, two things. Yes, we definitely we're a caucus state. So, as far as the parties are concerned, and the Democratic Party, that's how we chose our nominee. So, specifically, I had a personal experience because not only because I had a volunteer campaign office, so I personally was responsible for scanning and emailing 75 absentee ballots from members of the community. And only because I was a caucus site leader was I the one at the caucus site to open up the manila envelope from the state. And out of the 75, only 5 came there to be counted. From my area, in addition to being in a position where I was privy to conversations that there were thousands of votes that were not counted because they were sent to the wrong caucus, and they did not have the resources to get them to the right caucuses, in addition to many more that were sent back to the voters by mail, and by the time they didn't have time to send them back to be counted. So from my personal experience, although mail-in and that, because we're a caucus state, our primary doesn't really count. It's like a beauty contest. So the caucus is everything. And there was no secure chain of custody. All of the votes were at the chair's house. And, you know, just to be frank, the chair, definitely supported one candidate over the other, not to imply any impropriety, but I'm just saying there has to be, there was many things that disturbed me about that whole process. And based on what I personally saw, my personal opinion is that Clinton would not have even been viable in Washington State if all of the votes were counted. So I'm wondering, if you were in Congress, would you support and maybe co-sponsor a bill that was responsible for implementing, they had made our voting electoral system infrastructure. So it was like something that usually it's a state thing. Electoral process is a state thing. But what if we could make it broad, federal? It's infrastructure, voting for our president. So would you be open to co-sponsoring a bill that made it mandatory for instance, open source voting, which for those of you who aren't familiar, it has to do with, it's like blockchain, where no one could affect a vote without everyone else's eyes on it, all in real time. No one, there would be no backdoor, no possibility of any corruption, anyone getting in to change anyone's vote. Everyone could see it in every precinct, every town, every city, and every state. Would you be interested in supporting something like that?
I cannot hear Dorothy. Hold on,
I can't either.
Try again, Dorothy.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Gotcha.
Okay. Sorry. I must have muted it. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be a difficult thing to try and do from the federal level just because of the fact that all of our election systems are different across each state. But I definitely do think we need to look at election reform. I was appalled this last election cycle. I was a super volunteer for the Bernie campaign, and through that, I spent a lot of time contacting voters in several states. I had to become pretty much an expert on election law in every state. And through that, I realized just how absurd the level of bureaucracy is from state to state to state to state. And to have been in Iraq during the period of time in which we were sort of setting up their government, their democracy there, and the way that people were allowed to vote, they just showed up to vote. Then they had to stick their finger in this ink that wouldn't wash off that day. And so to identify who had voted already, then you couldn't vote again. And that was their process. There wasn't this having to jump through hoops in order to have registered. Like in the case of New York, they had to register in October for an election that was held, the next year. And so how would you know, right? How would you know that you wanted to participate if you didn't know who the candidates were before the election came around? And just all of the people who couldn't vote because their registrations didn't get processed in time, or their names weren't on the rolls, or they just didn't kind of understand that they were supposed to go to a certain place and vote. We don't educate people on how to vote, and with all of this bureaucracy and all of this absurdity, it is crazy that we can't function better. But so I would definitely support doing whatever we can to simplify the system and ensure that everybody's vote gets counted.
Awesome, thank you.
Tyler, do you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Sean, do you have any questions?
Yeah, actually. I'm not sure how simple this would be on the federal level, but do you support making the reinstatement of civics education in public education a priority?
Yeah, I think it should be included in our education system. I was actually really shocked to learn how many people had not had a basic civics education. I think that it's something, though, that we could institute throughout the education life of a student. We don't need to wait until their senior year to cram through how the government functions.
I noticed
Thank you. That was an excellent question.
someone did have a
Kendall.
hat up, was pee everywhere.
Hey, Tambourine, can you mute your... Thank you, sweetie. Kendall, do you have any questions? No.
I don't think I have any extra questions, but maybe, well, throughout this whole thing, listening, I've heard a lot of what we want to happen, but not a lot of how it's going to happen. What ideas do you have to put it in place? Kind of like building on what Sean said about the education thing, but like, what ideas do we have to put things into place?
Or have you thought about, or has she thought about what kind of bills she might be that she would be willing to either write and or sponsor and or fight for?
Yeah, stuff like that. Like, how do you make it happen? How do you make a dream a reality?
So first things first is we really have to build the progressive movement. And we have to do that across the country. We have to flip enough seats and fill them with progressives so that even other Democrats who might not have been before on board completely with our sort of radical ideas will begin to shift towards them in order to keep their jobs. So we need sort of to reach what's called like that critical mass of the population being engaged and being involved and fighting for what we want. and before we're ever going to be able to succeed.
How do you plan on getting more attention drawn to the progressive cause? What are your ideas on getting more people to overwhelm the system, essentially?
I think being bold, being honest, and being authentic, and really getting out there and talking to people, campaigning for other progressive candidates, and working towards ensuring that we have a strong, cohesive, sort of progressive army operating in order to get these things pushed forward.
All right, I'm cool.
With some of the other progressives running, not necessarily in CD3, but in Washington State, or some progressives that we've seen run, and who stands out to you? Who has stood out to you to where you believe they are progressively aligned, Berniecrats, so to speak? Any?
I think I know of some that are already elected. I'm quite impressed with Senator Hasegawa. Let's see. I'm going to butcher her name, so I'm not even going to try, but the city council, social alternative elected city councilor in Seattle. I think she's definitely a bold progressive voice. I'm still watching some other ones, waiting to see what they're willing to do, what they're going to put forward. But in general, I think across the board, one of the things we lack is strong, bold leadership in the progressive movement. I've been disappointed with other leaders who have not maintained that sort of willingness to be that voice and to be a strong voice, and they have kind of stepped back at times in which I have felt they shouldn't have.
So we have a port commissioner race coming up, and we have had somebody step up to run, who will fight against Tesoro and the oil companies, and then we have at least one, and it sounds like could be more, that are coming in saying they want us to have an oil terminal here. What's your thoughts on that? And are you willing to speak up for who you think is best in leading the way that we would want CD3, or as conscious-minded climate watchers would like to see come through? And I know a lot of the deniers look at it as money, jobs, bringing oil through. But do you see where we could possibly maybe go a different route to bring in those jobs, sustainable, livable wage jobs?
Yes, so I will definitely campaign for and help Don Orange, who is currently our candidate, who will stand up against the oil terminal. We cannot continue to invest in oil infrastructure if we want to move away from using fossil fuels. If we are going to be, investing in infrastructure, it should be in sustainable green technology. Should not be in building more terminals so that we can export oil, and so that we can get rid of this sort of overstocking we have of oil, which to me seems like this is the ideal time for us to move towards a system of energy that does not use fossil fuels. The time is ripe when we do have this sort of overstock. We have more oil than we need already pulled out of the ground. It's a great time to leave the rest of it in the ground and move away from fossil fuels, not build more infrastructure. So I will definitely be out there knocking on doors and helping Don Orange get elected.
And with the clean energy for Washington State or CD3, have we thought about what would most likely work best here, or how we can, which way we should maybe personally in our own lives look at investing in?
Yeah, I think solar is always a good option. We have the wind turbines, and we're actually pretty good at being green here in Clark County. I think that we do use some natural gas, but other than that, it is all renewable energy. But we can definitely always do more. I think we should get rid of the natural gas plant, and we should look at the ways that we can even retrofit. There is a technology for retrofitting coal plants and burning biomass that is either carbon neutral or carbon negative.
Great. So CD3 is pretty big and pretty diverse between city and country. How do you feel that you could bridge the gap between some of us way lefters who, fight for every little thing, to, people in the country who really are just struggling to survive, or don't have many resources? How do you see yourself bridging the gap between some ideologies that seem to keep us distant?
I think coming from a place of understanding and really trying to have an honest conversation with people and not attack them, really understand, what their values are, and then trying to have that conversation from their place, from their perspective. But when we poll people issue by issue, most of the country is in alignment with what we want. The problem isn't the people. The problem is the fact that our government doesn't represent the people. And if we really kind of just talk about the issues we share in common, the most important one being economic security, that's what most people want. And once we achieve that, once we kind of give people that sense of security, we'll be able to really talk about the other issues. We'll be able to talk about the environment and the need for a strong policy that prevents the planet from being destroyed.
So just to finish off, you are going up against Jamie Herrera Butler. What are you going to do differently from day one that you think is not being addressed so much with her? And it won't be too hard, but what will you do to increase your visibility and your being able to be contacted by your constituents?
Well, yes, I think day one would probably be tackling the VA healthcare system. I think we have a huge issue here in Southwest Washington with access to care for veterans, even though Jamie Herrera Butler is really good at using us for press releases and good press for her. She has not done what is necessary, which is that the VA really needs to be funded with enough money to hire the doctors they need, to purchase the equipment, to build the facilities, to keep up with the demand of Vietnam veterans who are entering into geriatric care, which is the most expensive care. And they are going to be using more and more of the system. So we need more and more resources to give them. So that's that's my big issue that I would separate from what Jamie Herrera does. And then when it comes to facing the voters, I think that even if it's uncomfortable, it is our job to make sure that we are accessible. I don't see any reason why we should not be holding town halls on every recess and holding them across the district, in good centralized locations so that it doesn't matter which of the 7 counties you live in, you should be able to talk to your representative face to face if you choose.
Thank you very much. Any last questions from anybody?
What are you going to run as, Dorothy?
I am running as a Democrat.
I think we're good. Thanks, Dorothy.
All right, so we have had Dorothy Gasque on tonight, running for Congress in Washington State CD3. Thank you very much, Dorothy, for giving us your lengthy time. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Have a great night.
Night.
All right. Did you?
Dorothy, feel free to stick around. We'll be doing just basic housekeeping from here on out. Sean, we should still record because we'll need it for the minutes.
All right.
You can stick around or go if you have to. Either way, Dorothy.
Yeah, either way. The only thing on the agenda right now is what are we? Are we a PAC? Are we a party? Are we going to merge with the Washington? I also wanted to bring up the scope of our mission. It could get out of hand really quickly if we try and tackle every race in the state. We might want to figure out if we want to deal with just Congress and State House and the State Senates, or if we want to actually go all the way down to City Council for the entire place, or figure out some hybrid. That's all I got. Anybody else anything want on the? We've got
I think if we have some people, I mean, maybe not advertise all the way down to City Council, but if, some people who really want to reach out to us and put in a form, we should take a look at it and decide individually, but mainly focus on these higher races. They're going to need a lot more people on the ground. But we also want to try to bring in some more visibility too. If Don Orange, if I talk to him and see if he'd want to be endorsed by us, that would be a big help. We absolutely need somebody in our court commissioner. He may or may not. I don't know how he feels about Berniecrats having or PIP or anything like that, but I'd like to keep it open to some that we really do need to maybe rally behind in some of these positions that absolutely need more of a progressive value.
Okay. We don't need to come to a conclusion tonight necessarily. I found myself thinking earlier that we will get spread too thin. Already ultimately all spread quite.
I think it would be a great idea if we could find somebody who is willing to do the research on different candidates in different counties. And that way we've got one person that has the information on, hey, this person looks good. What do you think? Here's their info. Like somebody who writes like a mini report, like a character report on someone that they find is interesting and brings that to our group. And then we can research from there. But that way it weeds out all the extra stress of looking through everybody at every time for all of us. We have a designated person for that.
Yeah, I'm down. The workload is insane. I was basically
it is. Maybe like a mini team would work.
Yeah.
We would almost need 2 or 3 people to do that. We've got however many counties, however many LDs, and you've got the city and the port commission, if whichever ports are have elections going on. We've got all the different kinds of commissions and stuff like that might have races going on in the next 24 months or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So I think maybe having a group, 2 or 3 people that could kind of step up and maybe, one person take Southwest Washington, one person take the Sound, one person take Eastern Washington, and kind of go through it and do research on their own individual areas, and then kind of come together and say, okay, well, this person looks good. Yeah, this person looks good too. Hey, how about this guy over here? And kind of bring it to the body and see what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
That's a lot better. Thank you for elaborating.
One of the directions this was coming from in as I was musing on this was that, we have 2 years on the congressional races and the senatorial race, and 4 on governor. So we can actually put a heavier emphasis on those time-wise because we've got so much time to deal with them. And then maybe on the ones that are coming sooner, all the 2017 races, we can more pick and choose and act more as a campaign team rather than as a pack. And I'm toying with ideas like that just because it's I'm just not sure how much of that we can get to. I mean, when we did this process last year, the ability to do it well, it took, it was a full-time job to do just the state level House races, and between 2 of us, and there's just no way. And so I'm wondering if we can get a comprehensive list of what's going on and then figure out how we're going to use our energy. It'd be nice to see, of course, this group grow, and I think it will. But even if all 5, let's say we've got 10 kind of reasonably active members, even if all 10 of us, had a lot more time than we have, we're still not going to be able to tackle every race in the state in 2017 realistically. So I'm looking for ideas as to how we can actually. Not every race is pertinent because of red zones where we just don't have any influence. So.
Right. Well, what we can do is, like you said, focus on these bigger races. But if something's in our area, or if there's something more pressing that we think needs a little bit more oomph behind it, we can just bring it to the group and decide if that's some a way that we want to go or not, and get behind them individually. So if somebody really stands out and this needs to happen, we need to get this person in, bring it to us, to the group separately, instead of actually even just searching out for all those different races.
I'm down to do both. The issue is that we've got to between our relatively small group, we've got to come up with the human power to be able to do. We already started the spreadsheet. We laid the groundwork for this work,
right?
But it is a lot of work. Ultimately, you have to call all these people and get to know every single one of them. Otherwise, what are we doing, really?
What do you guys think about if there comes a time where we decide on whatever races that we're going to focus on, that we do a joint fundraising type effort that is for our candidates and it's split evenly?
Absolutely. That's what this whole conversation in my own mind, when I was just lying there thinking about it, came from this realization that where my attention is on Congress, federal level Congress, on your race and on Dorothy's race. Even though I want to do everything, that's if we're going to actually make change in time to save the world from the Holocaust, we need to make change there. And so I was imagining us setting up such that by the time, not by now, but soon, that our 2018 campaigns, that we had all 10 congressional districts with a representative that we were really behind, and we were somehow campaigning as a team with all 10 of them. And I know that's a pie in the sky thought, but why couldn't we be doing fundraisers at where each of those people was showing up at in each other's congressional districts and raising money for each other? and even splitting it heavily in favor of the candidate. I mean, what we're really here to do is support candidates and get people elected. So either way, I think the answer is yes. And incidentally, Tambourine, I just saw your question. The answer is yes. You should absolutely let the group know what you're doing as far as your races are concerned.
Sean, yeah. So it all started literally last week in the interview with first Gigi, then you, Sean.
Look at Sean.
I mean, it kind of just like washed over me. But the thing is the next day, I went to Zita's campaign kickoff, which is our one moderate port commissioner, and one of the activists from Thurston County for the port took me outside, and she says, Tambourine, I just, I want to be really upfront with you. Us Thurston, progressives, we were talking, and, the consensus is you're a really, passionate and polarizing candidate. And, everyone sees you as really being strong and standing really firm and being unwavering. And we're just not sure if that kind of fire is what this position is really needing. But if you would consider running for Congress, we all would back you. And I was just like, oh my God. And, it kind of just clicked at that moment to kind of just go and with the energy. And I didn't feel the energy there anymore. And I just was like, I thought about it, and that's what I'm going to do. So you all kind of had a part in that. So yeah, 2018, Denny Heck.
You and Dorothy would be
I know, right?
Absolute powerhouses in the Congress.
Here.
I totally agree.
Powerhouses.
So Tambourine, will you be doing a new vetting form for this new position through us?
I think the only thing that's going to change is really the position. I think that's what prompted the question, because I was answering these are all federal type questions. They had little to do with a port race. So yeah, wherever it's necessary to change, I will.
So Tyler, would we just need to probably just change the position and then just evaluate? I mean, we didn't even end up truly voting yet with Tambourine on the port commissioner. So
Yeah, we have
would we just have her switch it?
Yeah, I think so, and we know her well. We have a multi-tier thing. We're doing cyber vetting. We're going to do interviews. We're going to do debates if it's possible in any scenario which it is possible. And at the end of all that, we're going to do a vote. So I don't think anything changes. And we've already done the interview. I think we just know we officially challenged Denny to a debate, and he'll decline, of course. And
right.
And
you guys should see his record. Oh my God! I've
seen it.
Oh, you saw it.
Oh yeah. It's abysmal.
It's disgusting.
Right. No, I was so happy when you said you're gonna run. You know who is gonna be running as port commissioner that we would want to get a voice out for that would save our port?
Sure. So definitely we want Zita back in, and there's about 3 potential candidates that are going to go against Bill McGregor. And as soon as the word is out on that, I'll definitely let everyone know, and I'm going to throw whatever support I can behind who they choose, because we've got to get the majority in that race as well. But just a little caveat, guys, which will kind of explain the questions I was asking Dorothy. I'm running as a progressive independent green. So what I've been doing is talking a lot with all my friends who are now committee men, committee women, and, vice chairs and chairs, and having the question, and these are all, to the bone progressives. And so they're agreeing in the sense of, it's time that we put aside that party bullshit, because how is a true progressive? This is where the rubber is going to meet the road now with all these conversations in regard to Dem Enter. And these are close friends of mine, all who are committed to changing the party from within. It's a perfect opportunity, because if you have people that if we're joining forces in regard to the issues, it should matter not what letters we have behind our names. It's time we have to put that aside, or else we're just flapping our gums, you know? So, yeah. I hope everyone shares that sentiment.
You know we do. You're in the right room for that conversation. Okay, so that's official. Tambourine is running for 2018 CD10. That is on the table. We're calling her interview from last week good for that, and we're gonna, we'll just move forward. Incidentally, I think we've got David next week, and we should. Is anybody? Is it Paul or Peter Harris who's the other in CD?
Peter Harrison.
Peter Harrison is the other, and I think Peter is next week, or is it David?
I haven't.
I don't know.
You said you were going to reach out to him.
I did, and he said he was good for next week.
Okay, do we have a set date? And
Sean, is it you're talking about Peter or David?
Peter.
Okay, I've got David for next week as well.
Do you? Okay. I can reach. I can. Let me.
What
look
day
back.
are they? I know David was wanting Wednesday, right?
Last I checked, I have David on the schedule for 8 p.m. next Sunday.
Okay.
Let
me look back in my message logs with
Sure.
Peter and see what we're looking at.
Okay. And then, so then what we should do is to do this thoroughly, and certainly at the congressional level, we should do this as possible. We should then, after we do those interviews, we should get all three of them on, Dorothy, you being one of the three, simultaneously, and just see, and just let it grow organically, so we really get a feel for all three of them and how they interact. And those are really good excuses for us to get, Tambourine, to get your face, more present as well. Having you ask questions in these scenarios is really powerful. And Dorothy, if you want to come for Peter and or Mike's interviews, please do. You're more than welcome, encouraged to be there, because these things really draw interest from people, and people will start looking for this information come voting time. It may seem far away, but probably not to you guys. But we got to keep on moving forward with this stuff. Let's talk about party. Are we a PAC? How are we going to get an EIN number? That's what we really need, is an EIN number.
That's easy. You can get that in 5 minutes.
We have to decide what we are, though. We have to get past a vote. That's the issue. we have to achieve a majority.
I say let's just go for a PAC for now.
Yeah, because the PAC status can be changed later. Whereas if we establish as a party, we're kind of stuck in party mode.
Okay.
I say PAC. I vote for PAC at this point.
Okay. We also have access to
we have parties that, right.
Yeah, I support the PAC. Going the PAC route over the party route myself too.
Okay.
That would be a little too confusing then with all the parties anyway, Progressive Independent, Democrat, Green.
Yeah, well, Progressive Independent isn't a party either, but we do have, the Progressive Party of Washington here. Democratic Socialists is really building big, and I know that they're not a party yet either, but they are looking at, I believe, becoming a party. Dorothy might know more about that. So it's, again, eventually, if we, what we want to do is build up a coalition of all these parties anyway, and if things have to fold in, maybe if we're not a party of ourselves, we can stay more fluid with the way that things are flowing. Things change so much that we can really just focus on the issues and the candidates that support our issues. And then, again, we're pretty fluid, and I think we could end up coming together and just help seal the deal in whichever way it ends up going.
Also, a positive side, being a PAC, is that language is my thing. It doesn't turn people away. Like, it shows that, yes, we are here for everyone. We are here for the individual, not for the party. So
Right.
I figured that would work better.
That too, and with the Greens, again, coming out as well, and endorsing other parties, it kind of helps bridge that gap that we weren't sure was going to be there. So yeah, I think it does leave us open to people to believe that we really are about the issues and the actual candidates versus any sort of party in general.
Courtney, she was the voice for the as opposed to PAC. And I see.
Sorry,
I see
Tyler, you're
texting.
breaking
Didn't hear anything.
Yeah, you're breaking
Yeah.
up.
I heard about every third syllable.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Check. I'd like to hear from Courtney because she was the strongest voice in favor of being a party, and I see she's texting, so I'm going to ask her by text real quick what her how she's feeling about that.
Okay.
I'm here. I can't speak eloquently on the benefits of one or the other. I am pro-party over PAC, simply because I think the PAC might be limiting in how we can endorse or support candidates, because PACs aren't supposed to spend money promoting specific candidates. So I always felt more inclined to be in a party format. And I have to say, I'm not the most informed on the ins and outs of either one, but I do strongly lean toward party.
Can you elaborate a little bit more on what we're able to do as a PAC that we're not able to do as a part, or vice versa?
But we wouldn't be. Sorry, if you guys want to go ahead.
Well, what I understand to be true is that we can maybe slander other people, but not promote anybody. We can do like Swift boat ads, but we can't advocate for a specific candidate. And so that's how I read the verbiage of the PAC finances and the little bits that I did glean when I was trying to look how to file for one or the other. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Dorothy, do you know much of the difference? I know we've done a PAC before, and working with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so PACs can endorse and they can support candidates, and they can either donate directly or they can do what is called independent expenditures, where they spend money outside and not coordinated with the campaign.
The confusion here, actually, if I'm not mistaken, is that the verbiage is meant to say that the PAC cannot support a specific one candidate. You can't build a PAC around Tamborine Borelli and have it all be about Tamborine. A PAC can support Tamborine and Dorothy and whoever else we choose to endorse, and can do whatever it wants in support of them.
And you can also do that as a 501c4, which is another option for you.
That's what I was kind of thinking, as a 501c4.
Could you elaborate on that, please? I'm not knowledgeable.
So 501c4 is a tax-exempt organization that can endorse candidates and can work for candidates. So like Planned Parenthood has a 501c3, and then they have what is called their Action Fund, which is a 501c4. So a 501c3 can't be political, but a 501c4 can. It's basically like being a PAC, except that you don't have to file with the FEC. You would just have to file with the IRS.
And how would that change us getting an EIN? Or does that not affect the process at all?
It doesn't affect it.
It is an EIN number. It's just a 501c4 EIN number, correct?
You would use the EIN number for either. I helped develop Election Justice USA's 501c3, and at the time we were vacillating between 4 and 3. And regardless, our EIN number would stay the same.
Hey, Kendall, I just put up an article from irs.gov specifically about C4s. their official name is social welfare organizations.
So
Hey,
what is a PAC? If we were a PAC, how would we file that under? What is that? A 7?
So with a PAC, you'd have to have a separation between your federal and your state. So you would have to separate those into 2 different bank accounts, and you would have to file with the FEC and the PDC if you were going to be supporting candidates both at state and local and federal candidates. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much the same, I think, across the board.
So less bookkeeping with the 501c4. I mean, all the books get in there, but you don't have to do the PDC or the.
But you would have to have some sort of focus with the 501c4, I think. I don't know.
In the article that Sean just sent, it says that we have to file a notice that we are thinking about becoming a 501c4 before we can even file. So the pre-filing, weird, but yeah.
Probably get the okay because it is a political thing. That's weird.
Yeah, maybe. I'll keep reading.
So Courtney, your thoughts? Oh, she's gone, isn't she?
Well, I'm not really qualified. I don't feel that I like the idea of the 501c4, I think. And it was a relief to hear that the PAC can endorse, say, a number of people and not rally around one. I understand that better now. Thank you. So I'm willing to just help us get on whatever track, but I'm no financial guru. I feel like I'm space holding until someone more knowledgeable comes along. And so as long as I'm not scared about, uncomfortable or, once I understand it better, I'll be more confident. And so everything here is sounding much better. I like the child I've got a little distraction near me. So, hello. So I might have missed a few, might have missed a few words there, but I think I like the 501c4 idea best so far, and I can now get more behind the idea of a PAC as well.
So what we have kind of on the table is probably either
End of the article says
Party.
the promotion of social welfare does not include direct or indirect participation or intervention in political campaigns on behalf or in opposition to any candidate for public office. However, a Section 501c4 social welfare organization may engage in some political activities so long as, sorry, I lost my place. So long as that is not its primary activity. However, any expenditure it makes for political activities may be subject to tax section, blah, 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 taxes. Okay, yes. So, TLDR.
Well, we definitely want to be able to get behind the candidates and push them and work for them. So that's the first and foremost.
Yeah, so maybe the C4 might not be the route. If I'm hearing and reading this correctly, that might not be.
For further information regarding political and lobbying activities of Section 501c organizations, and there's some links. Political campaign and lobbying activities of IRC 501c4, 5, and 6. Hello, link. Okay.
I just clicked that too.
Sorry, there's a lot of really teeny tiny texts, so if you guys just saw my forehead for a while.
Okay,
so what are you thinking, Tyler?
All do it in chat. All in favor of becoming a PAC, say aye in chat.
I don't know if I'm understanding.
Well, I need more information.
Vote yet?
Yeah, I'm kind of. I mean, I don't know. Maybe are PACs 5s or 6s, maybe.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So a PAC is a 527.
That's what I was, yeah.
Okay.
There's one that's a 700 something, but that is a party. Some sort of party is in the 700s. The PAC is in the 500s. And what I'm understanding with the PAC is that we just can't form one for one particular candidate, but we can form it as being able to get behind the progressive candidates that are aligned in our, I'm assuming, our bylaws that we'll have. And we can work, but we can't work directly with each candidate. Is that correct or incorrect?
You can, because you're limited in your donations. You would be limited to donating whatever that amount of money is, based on whether it's federal or state.
So we have a cap going that route.
Yeah.
But
So
we can
because of
work
that cap,
with
you can coordinate with
okay.
candidates,
If we were a
because
super
the
PAC,
candidates
that's
would
where it's
seek
the difference,
your
right?
endorsement.
We can't coordinate.
Yeah, because there's no limitation.
Okay. And then the 501c4 is a political type nonprofit that we would have to kind of have an issue-based type organization, and then use that issue-based organization to back the candidates through, correct?
Mhm.
And can you directly work with candidates, or
You would
is there a
basically,
cap on money raising there?
it's the same sort of cap across the board. So it'd be like 2,700 for federal races and 1,000 for state level.
Okay. Where does that include, like if we were raising money in general for our organization, if we produce certain goods like banners and different things or different ways to get the word out, is that acceptable? Is that separate? Is that considered part of the donation?
So
We want to get the biggest, I think we want to be able to get as much behind as we can.
So, I mean, I would really have to look into what the limitations are for a 501c4, but basically for a PAC, everything that you spend that's not directly given to a candidate is considered an independent expenditure.
Okay. That's helpful to know. And then as far as a party, that's pretty much, we have to file the PDC and all of that, but we can fundraise pretty much as we want, correct? Doesn't that open it up or not?
There's
Wouldn't
still
that be
limitations.
the FEC though, if we're dealing with congressional races?
Yeah, you would have to
watch those limits as well.
Yeah, there would be different limits, but I'm not really sure what they are.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on the differences?
So there's actually different categories for PACs. I'm on the Wikipedia page for political action committees. So there are committees which are basically connected to a business, a labor union, blah blah blah. Non-connected, which is what we would be. It's a group with an ideological mission, single issue group, and member of Congress and other political leaders may form non-connected PACs. These organizations may accept funds from any individual, connected PAC, or organization. As of January of 2009, there were 1,594 non-connected PACs, the fastest growing category.
So which C number was that?
4.
4. That is the 4?
Mm-hmm.
Or I thought PACs were 527, Dorothy, you said?
Oh,
yeah,
that was PAC that you were reading, right, Sean?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I was still
sorry.
reading about the 501Cs.
Okay.
Sorry, my bad. My brain
that was
mushed them together.
That comes directly from the Political Action Committee Wikipedia page.
All right.
There's a little button at the bottom of your screen that says share screen. In the future, when you're reading something or citing something from the internet, just click that real quick so we can follow with you and see exactly the context.
Oh, there is?
Oh, cool. So I've probably seen that dozens of times and didn't realize what I was looking at.
There you go. Where is that document I had? There it is. So this is the PDF that was at the end of that article that you sent, Sean, earlier.
Okay, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I had that up.
I don't get to see what it looks like. I just have my own screen.
Neener.
Oh wait, hold on. Oh, I can do this too. Wow, that's cool.
Woo! Check us out. We're gonna be.
That's awesome.
That's so cool.
All right. Political expenditures. Oh, that's PAC right there. 527E2.
Okay. Yeah.
So 501c4 would be the least amount of treasury work, it sounds like, having to do the file for federal and for state. I think it'd be easier if we're going to look at forming a party in the future, though, going from a PAC to party is the way to go, versus a C4 to party.
Yeah,
if
I would
I'm
agree.
understanding it correctly.
I also think that there is a considerable filing fee, depending on how much we're anticipating collecting. I'm pretty sure we vacillated a couple times between 3 and 4, so my memory might be a little foggy as far as if this pertains to both or just one. But say, for instance, if we're anticipating collecting more than $50,000 in a year, then there's a filing fee of like,
Oh, you're good. I'm just.
like, I don't know, $700, $800 or something like that.
That's something that we want to look into for sure.
Yeah, I think PACs are probably the way to go.
It might be the easier.
It's definitely the easier route to go if you want to start doing some immediate fundraising. The only thing you want to make sure is you do have a good, solid treasurer who will be following the deadlines closely. You don't want to miss those deadlines.
And those are,
I'm going to upload the file.
I mean, it's pretty consistent with what little bit I had worked with. It's, every day you really should be working on something, and then you got the file dates every month, and then every quarter as well, or on the 7th, or the so many days before the election, and there's lots of lots of dates you got to be.
Yeah, there's a lot of deadlines, but the FEC is really good about sending you emails to let you know kind of ahead of time with a reminder. Most of the time, you're going to be filing quarterly. I think there are some different kinds of PACs that have to file monthly, but as far as from my experience so far, it's quarterly filings. And as long as you're kind of on top of it and you're following the procedures. And then as you kind of get a little bit more money, there are software options that make it a whole lot easier, especially if you're going to be using like something like ActBlue to do your online donations, then transferring that data into the software and then it'll automatically produce the reports for you.
Okay. So it sounds like so far PAC's kind of in the lead, if I'm not mistaken.
Seems like it. The question is: Are we ready to make this decision, or do folks want more time? I think Courtney, it'd be good to hear from you again on this. I know you're considering yourself the stand-in, but as of now, you are technically our elected treasurer.
well, then the easiest. I can get behind PAC, and I am willing to still look further into whichever 501(c) or C, fill in the number, might be best. So I think as a group, whichever one is chosen, and then I'll see what I can do, and if it's within my means, I'll continue to do it. If it's beyond my abilities, then I will gladly make room for another person.
Great, thanks for doing it. And what do you guys think? Shall we try and come to a decision on this tonight, or do you want to wait another week?
I'm okay going forward and looking at the PAC, since that kind of seemed like the most
feasible
route. So I'd say
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can we do it officially by chat? All in favor of becoming a PAC, please type yes in the chat box.
Why are you always private to me? I need it everyone. I guess I'm not sharing.
Anytime you send a private message or somebody sends a private message to you, it will default to return that.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Yeah, I have the same issue. Just so everybody knows, that's a really common problem with Zoom. If somebody sends you a private message, it will automatically set to send them a private message back. And oftentimes, when you think you're sending to everybody, you'll be sending to just one person. Okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have a unanimous decision to become a PAC. It's official.
So then we need to get something scheduled ASAP to really get all of our minutes in order, and so we can start filing. I don't think it necessarily has to be all in person. We could probably do it over this.
Yeah, our minutes are recorded now, so we literally we have just files. I think that passes as minutes at this point.
We have enough of everything we need right now.
I think we need articles of incorporation. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, articles of incorporation.
Yep.
Okay.
So that'll probably be also another expenditure, maybe a couple $100, right?
To file, you mean?
Yeah.
Does anybody have the answer to that question?
I'm looking it up right now.
I've done a couple. Will we do like an LLC or?
Second link that I found: free articles of incorporation, free, fast, and done in 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah, we can
How
just
much
copy
money?
They said free,
The magic word.
right?
We can very easily just borrow and modify from any one of 10 million organizations on articles of incorporation.
Oh, yeah.
So I've got this. I just found this on LegalZoom.
Do we need to be an LLC to be a PAC?
No.
Mm-mm.
No, you just, what you're going to want for a PAC is your charter and bylaws.
Oh, okay. What?
But those are all internal documents.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a couple $100. That's what I paid for, or what we paid for at Election Justice.
So it's saying 100 to 250.
Yeah.
Election justice is more federal, like nationwide, right? And we're just looking at Washington State, so it might not be as much.
Yeah.
No, we incorporated Election Justice USA is a Washington nonprofit.
Oh, I thought it was.
I mean, it is, we actually have our 501c3 that's in process, but we additionally are a Washington nonprofit. So that was another, two separate expenses.
Okay. Well, I think National's looking at doing a big national one. I don't know all
Well,
that yet.
and the way that, I don't know if it's different between the different 501Cs, but I was involved and on the governing board for an arts nonprofit down in California. And the way that they did it is they actually went under the umbrella of another 501c3, and were in, like, had all rights thereof, being a nonprofit, being under their umbrella. So we might be able to go under the umbrella of the national group and just get our 501c that way, depending on what route they go. If we want to go a different route, then, you know,
I just don't want to wait for those guys.
It's going to take longer for national to get all the way done. I think we can get our ball rolling here in Washington. We're kind of paving the way, hopefully, on how we can all work together between the Dementors to the Greens to, so inside and outside of the party. So I definitely want to get something going on here ASAP. I believe national will be doing the same as what we're doing, possibly a PAC and then form whatever, but we're ready here to get going and running. And so, I don't want to wait either.
So am I correct? Do I understand correctly that we need bylaws and our own charter? Is that what we need to move forward as a PAC?
Yeah, that's where you're going to want to start, so that you can kind of establish how your decisions are made, what your mission is, and what your committee looks like.
So
Okay.
we don't need articles of incorporation?
No, not for a PAC as far as I know.
Okay.
Okay, we should probably wrap up. It's getting pretty late. Why don't we set the mission at, we've already decided to be a PAC, so that's official. Why don't we set the mission at hashing out some bylaws and mission and vision statement, which, we've been actually working on for many months now at this point.
Right, it should be almost complete between everybody's little inputs on each side.
Yeah.
Real quick, back to the previous thing before we close out for the night. While we don't have to have articles of incorporation, it's recommended for liability purposes. So
Okay.
that's
fine.
what I'm reading here on the .gov site. So.
Okay, so our action items for the week are to try and hammer out at least a rough draft of those 3 items. Actually, that's more like 5 items, isn't it? Is it vision, mission, charter, articles of incorporation, and bylaws? And we can copy these things from other places and whatnot. We have tried. I think this will be the 3rd or 4th time we've opened a thread trying to do these things, but we'll just keep pecking away at it and eventually get it.
We should open up some working documents to work off of instead of using our messenger thread, because it's hard to keep track of everything that we're saying. So
Share doc.
Share docs that we can.
Let's put a shared Word document in the Google Docs folder, and just start messing with it. And we'll make one for each of those 5 subjects, and give everybody in here permission to modify it and start hashing it out.
Yeah, or anybody else that didn't make it tonight too that wants to be a part of that.
Yeah, sure. We'll let people know in the thread that's happening, and in the main threads, and give people access who wants it.
Sean, did you find out about David? Peter? Before you sent you were looking into that?
He's available any Sunday but the 23rd.
Which happens to be a week from this weekend. Okay. David, he was in transit, so this next Sunday he's available, but he would be in transit, so it might be that that's not convenient for him, and I'll find out sooner than later. So let's, Sean, why don't you and I connect in the near future about scheduling those 2 specifically?
Yeah.
Can we take point on starting Google documents for in the Google account, in our Google account, for working on the bylaws, etc.? Anybody feel like doing that?
You want me to make a folder? Is that what you said?
Folder.
We'll just make a Google Doc for each of those conversations. So we'll have one Google Doc that is just called bylaws,
Okay.
and give everybody access to modify it, and we'll start cutting, pasting, kind of hive minding on an actual document. Should be one called vision, one called mission, one called bylaws, one called articles of incorporation, and one called whatever the fifth one was. I can't remember what it was.
Okay.
I think
Is your phone number the one that's set up with a Google account?
I don't actually know that for sure.
Does your phone end in
I don't recall
13?
doing that. No, it's probably Aaron. But we can change that if necessary.
Yeah, because it has to verify that it's me who's logging into the Berniecrats Gmail account before I can do anything with it. And it's trying to send a text message to a number that ends
Sending a
with
text message to
13.
somebody.
Yeah.
Okay. It's definitely either Aaron or Lisa T. Kendall, I'll put you in touch with Aaron via Facebook right now.
Okay.
So I'll put in there to everyone. So we need the bylaws. Article.
I got it once.
Yeah, so it was articles of incorporation, bylaws, mission, vision,
Charter.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you, Tam.
Charter. Bylaws, articles, incorporation, charter, mission. And what else? Bylaws, articles of incorporation, charter, mission. Vision. That's it. Vision. Okay, so I put all 5 of those in the group chat on Zoom.
So question, this is kind of let's finish this up and then I'll ask a question.
Can't hear you, Tambourine.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
I was going to ask a question, but I'll wait till we wrap this up so I don't muddy the waters.
No. Tyler, can you mute your...
Yeah, sorry.
He sounds like one of, when you're on a hold and they want you to think that a real person is on the other line. Like thinking about answering your question, but it's just a computer.
So you were saying, you were going to say something and I didn't end up hearing it. So do you want to say it?
Oh, I didn't want to muddy the waters. I wanted to wait till we wrap this up before I asked the question on a different subject.
Oh, okay.
I think we're good to move on. I mean, this is just nuts and bolts around action items. So, I mean, probably now is a good time as any, Tambourine.
So I'm just curious, because of the fact that whole interview was on the basis of me running for port, is there what would you suggest, some kind of indication to anyone watching the video that I am indeed now running for Congress, which will be an irony because the interview ends with that question. So,
right.
Do you think it even,
redo it again?
I mean, either we could do it again or, like figure out a day during the week or something like that where we can kind of run it again, or just maybe at the end of it, do a real quick blurb, recorded blurb saying, hi, this is Tambourine and I'm now running for Congress.
Because of Gigi and Sean and Yeah, I don't want everyone to go through the whole thing again. That would be ridiculous. So a little tiny,
Right. Is it editable?
Yes.
Video, we can edit it out really well.
Yeah.
So we can look at something like that. Or if we want to get you actually sitting, like Dorothy did too. I mean, it's up to you. I kind of like you moving around, makes you, but if you wanted something more formal where you wanted to be, address it more, we can even just look at doing it again. It doesn't have to go out, to everybody, just a couple of us going through again with you if you want. Or I would like to throw in more questions like we did with Dorothy and like we're going to plan on, that we didn't necessarily get as into with you either because it was more focused and I don't know. I'm kind of open to whatever, but.
Yeah, no, I'm totally open. If you guys, I just want to respect your time. If you guys are down, I'm down. Whatever you want to do, I'm cool with.
Yeah, I mean, we can make it happen.
What do you think, Tyler? Does it take away much? I mean, how much time money are we putting in on each of these 2 hours, 3 hour long meetings?
I mean, it's all paid for effectively. We pay $15 a month for this service, and as long as we're recording to Sean's hard drive, it doesn't cost any more. I think the exposure is worth the time, and we just set it up. When the time is right. We got a couple of years before the actual race, so it's just another excuse to get in front of people.
Yeah, we actually. Sorry. The people around in this area, like Thurston, we just were saying yesterday that there's going to have to be such an army because, the guy who was my manager for the Senate race, he was like, well, he was like going up against Denny Heck. That might be a hard sell. You're going to need thousands of dedicated volunteers, and I was like, volunteers can be rallied for sure, but it will have to start now. It will have to, there's a year before I officially have to necessarily file, but it's going to take that long, I think, to be able to rally the kind of foot soldiers to go up against his money.
I thought you had to file pretty quickly after announcing that you're going to run for a position.
With the PDC, yes, but what I read with the FEC, what really distinguishes when you absolutely have to file is when you collect $5,000.
It also stipulates if you make a public announcement. So if
you read that really carefully, I went through that because I was curious because I did say it. So if you read that paragraph, the stipulation activates it after you announce it. It activates it once you have collected 5,000. Read it again and tell me what you get from it as well. I'd be interested because I went over it like 2 or 3 times just to be sure.
If I were you, I would go ahead and file anyways, regardless, because especially if you're going to be starting to try and set up some online fundraising, most of the organizations, the websites that give you that platform are going to require that you have a FEC number beforehand anyways. And there's really no negative thing to filing. You're just going to basically give your statement of candidacy, and then you give your statement of candidacy, and then you just fill out your little form that says who your treasurer is and where your records will be kept. And it takes probably like 10 to 15 minutes for the entire process, and you'll have your little number then you can open up a bank account. Hold on. You have to open your bank account first.
Kind of like the Senate campaign.
That's the hardest part, is getting the bank account open. So open your bank account. Then once you have a bank account, because you're also going to have to give that information when you file. You can actually file your statement of candidacy at any time, which is the one that has the shortest period, I think, which is the 10 days from announcement. Or raising 5,000.
Right. So kind of like how it was with the Senate campaign last year. You got the EIN first, then you open up the bank account. And then that's, I guess my question I wasn't sure about was the definitive 14 days I wanted to know if the FEC was the same as the PDC, because I have no problem going to file. That's definitely, inevitable. But I wanted to know what my parameters were. Did I have to do it within 2 weeks? Because I'd have to come up with the amount of money and it's considerably more than my Senate race, obviously, because isn't it like 1% of the salary or something like that?
That's when you file for ballot access. So that won't be until May of next year. You don't
So
have to
you're
pay
saying I can
anything.
file, I don't have to come up with any money right now?
No, filing with the FEC is free. And you can do it all
Oh,
online.
okay. Well, then I could do that tonight.
Yeah.
I was like, but if I'm going to have to come up with, $1,000, $2,000, whatever dollars, then I might have to,
No. You don't have to come up with that money until May of next year. And I mean, I'm trying to remember to do it, but we could just start gathering signatures now and never have to pay that fee.
That's what I was saying. We can get out and get signatures.
Oh, that's true too.
Thurston County on it. They're already said they're behind you. Start getting, and that's where you can start building your foot soldiers as well, which is it's a must. And Dorothy's been working on for the last couple, year or two, on the Bernie campaign, which you already have a base because you are also one of the head leaders in that campaign. So you have a base too. It's just out reaching out and activating them. I would do whatever you can have to get going. And I mean, unfortunately, it's taken 2 years to campaign now.
Dorothy, on a side note, I was going to tell you that, for your opposition, don't forget that we have, cyber forensics on our side. So we could do some serious oppositional research for you, for Herrera.
Yeah, she's a pretty cautious person, so I'm not sure there's going to be too much out there.
You never know.
The biggest thing standing against her really is her vote on the Affordable Care Act and her general do-nothingness and her complete lack of willingness to face voters.
Her complete absence on all.
That would be bad enough, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you would think, but she keeps getting reelected.
Yeah, how does that keep happening? How does Benny Heck keep getting elected when his votes are like not even Republican light? They're like straight up, like right-wing votes.
It's the money. It's all the money. It's all the money.
Yeah.
So
And
really,
not having the passion, somebody that can draw people in. I mean, there hasn't been a strong, good voice out there. It's about money. So we got to rise above that money and be louder than any money that can come in.
Talk about those issues. Talk about those issues and get the candidates out there talking about those issues. Single payer health care.
We've got whole Washington
funded education
behind it and start getting out there.
And grassroots fundraising. It's
grassroots.
It's been probably the single hardest aspect is getting people to just give those tiny little donations.
It's true because I think the reason why is because there's so many groups out there now and they're not sure who is truly progressive. I think that people are still kind of weeding out on who they're going to believe because there's so many people coming out as a progressive or as an independent or as this or as that. That's not, I think it's hard for them to really want to put their heart into somebody without truly knowing yet. So I think that's where, as Dorothy is getting endorsements or us endorsing, and as people have seen us this last year or so, they know where we're coming from and what we're looking for. So it's really getting the right groups that have been known already to back true progressives and pushing that and backing them. It's going to take a lot of those kind of voices to help and push that, but we got to get those fears of who they're backing to the side.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think the thing that I tell people to do is to judge us by our actions, not by just what we say. don't be afraid to ask that question. What have you done for the progressive movement? Because it takes a whole lot more than just being a candidate.
Yeah, no kidding, for sure.
How much
Actions
rubber,
speak louder than
rubber have
words.
you?
Maybe
How much
actions
rubber?
speak
How much
louder.
rubber have you put to the road
Mhm.
for the progressive movement?
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
we should be looking for activists. We should be looking for people who can step out of the activist role and into the political role and make that transition so that we know that we have bold, loud, radical voices that are going to be that opposition and that are going to be the strong leaders who will, stand by our principles and stand by our values all the way to the end of the process.
And I think the best way, how much easier is it to just go on someone's social media and just look, what have you been doing in the past year? And it'll show from day to day, from week to week, have they been out there?
The thing is, though, there are politicians who just show up to things and get a picture and there to speak about them or speak on that subject, I guess some, but aren't really getting their hands dirty, do you know? So,
Yeah, totally. There's a difference between showing up for a stump or a photo op and being able to see. And anyone that has discerning eyes can tell the difference of someone that is just there in the trenches with the people at a protest or trying to get a photo op,
Yeah. So, and sometimes it's hard to tell, and that's why we got to get, organizations or people who are going to be getting behind candidates to really kind of help push that narrative too. This one is out there fighting. They're, and because it's Washington and we've got this good base of Berniecrats by now too, and we know our communities, we need to listen to those communities. And when we say that, this, I guess, again, people who have been aligned that we trust already all across our state is really kind of backing those in the community who we feel will actually represent us as well. So it's a lot of things combined, but once we get that in there, though, we got to be ready to really be loud, stand up, and encourage others to do the same and work hard for them.
Yeah, agreed.
It's not just about social media. We have to put in a lot of freaking work, and people got to realize that, but it's going to be for the right reasons.
No, for sure. Social media is just one piece of the pie, for sure. That
one.
Shows like a fraction of the picture.
Right. We got to hear more from the communities around there. They need to speak up more and say, no, this is who's in my community. This is what they've done for my community. So we got to push those kind of actions too on the people we get behind. Is recruit those people who are actively actually working to get that person into office. Why are they? What drew them to do that? Because knocking on doors, is not a very fun thing to do. So when you're out there doing it, there's a reason for it. So we need to maybe get those voices out there, a bit more video or whatever we have to do to rally more people around them as well.
Totally.
All right, sorry. Anything else, Tyler?
I need a code from Kendall, but yeah, I should wrap up. We should all wrap up, but
You need a code from me?
yeah.
Check your phone.
Should have just gotten a code.
Oh no, I got that a while ago. I'm already in. I already created the folders. I already uploaded a document.
Of course you did.
Fill in the form for the Articles of Incorporation. I'm moving on.
Kendall is the woman.
Okay.
Did you put that in our Signal?
Google Drive.
Yeah. Can you put the links into our Signal?
I already did.
Of course you did.
Or are you talking about? Hold on, let me get out of the members thing. It's showing me just members.
Either member
I
or
put a
board.
link for the PDF that I uploaded, but if you want a link to the updated Google Drive.
I just like to keep it to where it's handy. I always get it lost. So even if it's just in the board where there's a couple of us, I can find it easier. And then we can always share it from there.
I think that'll work.
Okay, cool.
Guys, I'm going to jump off.
Yeah, it's time.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed being a part of this process and Dorothy, I hope I wasn't too, nitty gritty with you, but I was inspired just from the latest things going on, and I really appreciate who you are and the kind of congresswoman you would be, and you've got my complete and total support.
Look at this duo that we already got started for. If we end up choosing you guys to back, the people out there. I'm very inspired as well.
I'm seeing a lot of wonderful names pop up across the country. A lot of Bernie delegates making the leap to run for Congress. So this will be a pretty interesting year if we can get ourselves organized and really coalesce behind the right people.
Agree. Yeah.
From what I understand, one of the latest names to pop out came out of Kansas, I think. They're a delegate. That's like very recent.
Where?
Out of Kansas.
Oh, did I hear? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I heard that yet. Tam,
I think
I know you got to go. Sorry, honey. Unless you want to stick around and listen to this part.
I got to step out as well, you guys. Thanks for your time and attention. I'm going to log out. Peace and love
Okay.
you guys.
I'm gonna.
You guys have a great night. Yeah. Sorry, Sean.
Oh no, it's okay. Yeah,
you guys too.
I'm
Talk
gonna go
soon.
recording.
Till next time.